On this episode of Sides, we whine about being millennials because that's what millennials do, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm gonna dish it back at baby boomers like way harder than they come at me. You can talk whatever you want to talk about millennials, like you ruin the earth.
We also talk about whether school should be teaching us how to have good sex.
You can read as many books and many textbooks as you want, but once you're actually having sex with someone, it's a totally different story.
And whether it's possible to be friends with an ex. Yeah.
Not a chance.
We have a super exciting night tonight. We have so much to talk about. We're gonna be talking about getting called a millennial, useful sex ed, salary transparency, and if it is like possible to be like besties with your ex. So let's start off with our okays and our no ways of the week, what we're feeling this week, what we're not feeling this week, and Layla, I think you should kick it off.
Alrighty, so my okay of the week is this TV show called Andy Mack, and so that's not the okay. The okay of the week is that in this TV show, there is a character it's on their second season on Disney Channel. The character is actually like a teen who's coming out and experiencing the journey of coming out to their friends and families and in their communities. And I think it's really rad to see the LGBT community, especially the youth community, represented on such a scale in such a way, because I feel like there's a lot of LGBT youth who are going through exactly the same thing. So to have the representation, I think, was super rad, and that was like the most blessed okay.
Visibility is like so important.
Yeah,
and like so key.
I agree.
And
so my no way of the week came from Hawaii. In Honolulu, you can now get a fine for texting or being on your phone and crossing the crosswalk. So it's a $30 up to $35 fine. I'm so not about this, because like I feel like if you're on a crosswalk and it's like your turn to like walk across, you can be on your phone, you can do whatever. It's like the driver's job to sit there and be like, oh, that's a red light. Maybe I shouldn't run through that and accidentally kill a pedestrian and get T-boned.
Yeah,
so
but
like,
you know what? This is just keeping people safe at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I still think like
Drivers
it's
make
no.
mistakes.
No. But I feel like, okay, the worst thing that a person walking on their phone can do is like trip and like break their face. I think it comes down to the fact that if you're driving a 10,000-pound metal vehicle, maybe you should have some sense in your head not to go through a red light. So.
Kristen, you're okay, you're no ways.
Wait, I feel like you agree on that.
No, go right ahead.
Mine are a bit different. So this woman here, her name is Setsuko Thurlow. She was born in Hiroshima and grew up there. She now lives in Toronto. In 1945, obviously, an atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima. She was there. She is now living in Canada. She's devoted her life to anti-nuclear activism, which I think we can all get behind as like a pretty important cause. Nuclear bombs are bad. So in December, she's getting the Nobel Peace Prize, which is really good because she's devoted, like, this isn't just this is her life's labor. And it's always good to see a Canadian winning it, but also, like, this is just such an important cause that people kind of forget about sometimes nowadays. It's good to see this being prominent. My no way comes from current events. Many of you probably heard this gentleman, Kevin Spacey, a great actor. I love House of Cards, but obviously has been alleged of doing some rather bad things, some sexual advances to another actor who was a minor at the time. In the process of sort of talking about the advances, or the alleged advances, he chose to come out as gay. I don't like the fact that he did this, and a lot of people, I think, side with me, because it's really not good to conflagrate the two things, considering it takes a lot of courage to come out of a closet. I mean, I haven't done it, but from what I can tell, it takes a lot of courage. And basically, like, the fact that most people have to do it cold, I mean, he's just kind of using it to sort of perhaps distract from the allegations, I don't think is right. I think it's kind of unfair. I don't think it's a very good move.
So my okay of the week is Bernie Boy was like in Ontario talking about universal healthcare, which is like my jam, and like he's such a cutie, and universal healthcare is such a cutie, so I'm like there for that. And that's rad. And then my no way of the week is like less cool, but also involves a politician that I'm less of a fan of. So basically the White House reaffirmed, I guess, a bunch of women came forward and alleged Donald Trump of sexual harassment during the campaign. He said that it was not true and that these allegations were false and that they lied. And the White House backed that statement this week and said that they also believe that. So that's a bummer to me because I think that 16 women, I believe, came forward, and if you believe, 16 women, which I personally do, then you would think that these allegations have some grounds for investigation. So it kind of bums me out that the White House is calling these chicks, saying that they lied.
So my okay for this week is Justin Trudeau's parenting skills. So his son, Hadrian Trudeau, dressed up as Sky from Paw Patrol, and that's a pink character. And as a parent, you know, as a man, I feel like it's so important, you know, that we tell our young men and our men to know that they can dress in whatever colors they want. It doesn't define, you know, nothing. Wearing this doesn't make you a girl. Wearing this doesn't make you a guy. It doesn't make a difference. So do what you want, and as long as you're happy, then that's important. My no way goes to this whole debate going online between like fans of like the emojis. So Google and Apple have different views on where the cheese. So Google and Apple have different views on where the cheese should be placed in a cheeseburger. And why is my no way is just because I think it's so irrelevant from everything in the world. Like Google has so many things to take care of in the world. They don't have time to like focus on where the cheese goes. So I think it's just ridiculous.
Does go on top.
Yeah, I'm with Grace on this one. You can't, the cheese cannot melt on the bun.
Okay, but wait, you know what? You have a good point. We do have important debates to get to. So what's next?
Hot tip, call young people youth or teens. Whatever you do, just don't call them millennials. The federal government was recently advised not to call young people millennials. After a series of focus groups conducted for Employment and Social Development Canada, researchers found that young people resent the term. They reportedly find it offensive and insulting, since millennials are often characterized as lazy, narcissistic, and entitled. They'd prefer youth or young Canadians, something with less of a stigma. Critics suggest young people need to stop whining. There are far more important things to be outraged about. How do you feel about the term millennial? Do you find it insulting?
Alrighty. First, I'm a millennial. Second, I love being a millennial. So I think this whole thing about like millennials are so bad or whatever, I think it's like older generations projecting things on us. Like the whole avocado debate, like, oh, millennials are so financially unstable because they buy avocados. Well, man, I'm trying to be healthy compared to your generation. Why is that a bad thing? Or the fact that we live at home with our parents after we go to university. I just put myself through school. I'm making the financial decision to not put myself in more debt. Like, this whole idea that a millennial is narcissistic and bad, it comes from outside. I don't know a single millennial who doesn't like being called millennials. I think internally there's a sort of a grit.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
okay, well, I feel like internally there's sort of like a millennial grit. Like we have to go through stuff that no other generation has gone through, and we come together as millennials and say, yeah, we're going through terrible things, but we're millennials and we're gonna make it and we're gonna do it, and that's my love for millennials.
I just feel like the groups that I want to be identified with are the ones that I can choose to put myself in. Like what I'm interested in, what I do, what I study, where I live, where I go to school, what I want to do with my life. Not things that I'm just so selected into because of when I was born, which is the most arbitrary thing. Like millennials, you're talking about people born in 30 years, that's hundreds of millions of people. And to say that the stereotypes, I'm forgetting about the stereotypes, but like the negative connotations that are associated with like the laziness and the narcissism and that kind of thing. Like some of the stuff, like we never hire millennials. And we cater our advertising to millennials. It kind of sets me off because I'm me. I'm not a generation.
I think that's really interesting that you say that you don't want to be categorized as things that you didn't get to choose, because I think that is like a viewpoint that you could only possibly have if you didn't belong to a lot of different identities that don't have that luxury, right? Like I think that's a really specific place to come from. Yes. So I think I personally have no problem with, I don't have a problem with the term millennial. People bash millennials, that's fine. I'll take it, but I'm gonna dish it back at baby boomers way harder than they come at me. So that's fine. You can talk whatever you want to talk about millennials.
I feel like
you ruin the earth. Well, ever heard of climate change?
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's my thing. I feel exactly what you feel, but I hate when people call us millennials because people always just yesterday I heard someone say, "Oh, you millennials are so sensitive. You're the reason why we can't call other people gay, or the reason why we can't call brown people packy." And I'm just like, wow. Well, the thing is, I don't feel this we're too sensitive. Is that we care because when I think of a gay man, what if that was me? What if my wife is gonna be a hijab woman? What if my wife is gonna wear a niqab? So that's when I care. Well, so that's the thing. It's their generation feels like, oh, because it's not me, I won't care. No, I feel like our generation cares. And our generation, that's why I don't like being called millennial, because when other people call us that, it's just such a bash to us.
Personally, I really like the term millennial because it coins and understands a lot of the problems that the people of my generation face. Some of the economic struggles we have to afford a house, or the way that we live our lives with different social injustice and inequality. But it's also important to understand that we need to dispel this negative connotation that millennial actually has. A lot of the older generations think of millennials as no good, not hard workers, but it's important to understand that millennials live in a very different, complex time system where they have to work for different things that past generations didn't have to work for.
So Michael, what's your beef this week?
So my beef this week is all the people who try to tell me that you can't find love somewhere other than, you know, going to a club or, you know, going into a party or something. I think that's ridiculous. Like, I still believe in love, honestly, and I feel like, you know, we should be able to find love. You know, I want to find love on a subway, or I want to find love in a library, or I want to find love, you know, going grocery shopping or something. I don't feel like I have to fit into like this societal norm to fit in or to find love. Like, that shouldn't be how things are. So my beef is really all the people who try to tell me that you have to find, that you will find love here or you will find love here. It's like, no, you can find love anywhere.
Should sex ed teach you how to have good sex? There's outrage in the Belgian region of Flanders over a website for teens called All About Sex. It's run by a government-funded center for sexual health, and it doesn't just provide basic sex education, it also teaches teens how to have pleasurable sex, even providing illustrations of sex positions. The site is meant for teens 15 and older, but according to Belgian media, it was recently included in a guide given to 10 and 11-year-olds, and some parents are not happy about it. Over 5,000 of them reportedly signed a petition called "Stop, we want to teach our children ourselves." But the Flemish youth minister is all for it. He said that he's in favor of opening up and discussing sexuality without taboos. What do you think? Should sex ed include a focus on pleasure, or should it stick to basic biology?
So I think that sexual education is so important. Like, I think it is so incredibly important. I have a few fears around certain types of institutionalized sexual education, because I think schools are notoriously bad at sexual education. And so I get nervous about also including into that the idea of like pleasure. And one of the things I was talking about is like the website included like sex positions and things like that. And I think schools do a really, like, I just can't imagine my like 70-year-old gym teacher talking about the nuance of female pleasure, or like the female orgasm. Like, that literally makes me cringe and want to die. But do I think the website should exist? 100%. Do I think that like people should have access to that education? Oh, totally, totally, totally. Do I think like schools are good at that? No, they're really bad. If they got better at it, then I'd be like, yeah, include some like pleasure stuff in there. But now I'm like, no.
Go ahead.
I feel like schools, man, they shouldn't. How are they gonna teach us how to have pleasurable sex when they can't even teach us how to have a pleasurable time in class? Like, man, like before you teach me how to do cartwheels and backflips when I'm having sex, why don't you teach me how to clean my room? Like, why don't you teach me how to invest? Why don't you teach me how to manage my money? There's way more important things that they could teach us.
I do have fear around them, like, who teaches you? Because I say schools are notorious bad, okay, but parents are also notoriously bad.
And so
I'm like,
this is the thing, because
hold on. Let's hear what Christian has to say. No, let's hear what Christian has to say.
thanks.
Yeah.
Here's my thing about sexual education. Like, first of all, it seems as though most of it is dedicated to what you can't do and scaring students. Like big scary pictures of STIs and don't do this and don't do this, don't ever think about this. To the point where it's almost like you're expecting these students who, like, I started sex ed when I was in grade 5. You're expecting them to have a certain amount of like prerequisite background knowledge. When you're 5, there is no prerequisite knowledge. Okay, at a certain point, I think this is actually a good thing to have in schools, because if you tell people what not to do all the time, human nature is that you're just going to tune out. It's better to teach from the affirmative, and so I think this in moderation could work.
You know, I have a unique opinion on this, because I think, like, you know, everyone talks about how their first time was trash, and I think maybe talking about like some sex positions and like maybe like, oh, the clitoris is a good place to be around. I think it's important for people to understand, okay, not to be able to identify you have syphilis or you have an STI, but say like, that's a clitoris. That feels good. Maybe let's try that. So I'm all for it just on the fact of being able to have a better first time.
Here's
Okay,
my
but I
thing,
feel like, okay, but my big fear too here is like, we know that like sexual education is always, like tends to be incredibly heteronormative and incredibly like cis-normative. And that's like my other big fear, is that the idea of sitting in a classroom and having us go over sex positions and only being for like heterosexual cisgender couples is just like so cringeworthy. I wanna like not deal with that.
And we have a tweet to back that up. Austin, using hashtag #MySide, thank you, says that I think that basic sex ed in grade 8 is, well, but once you get to high school in grade 9, you should start to learn about pleasure.
Maybe that's better in
Good.
high school.
That's not a bad division, actually.
And the thing is, in theory, I so badly want it to be in school, in theory, but then I always like wonder
But
in
here's the
practice,
thing.
my gym
No,
teacher
but-
was so cringeworthy.
But I just think that like every human being is different and everybody gets pleasure differently.
Yeah.
So what are they really gonna teach us about pleasure? Like you can read as many books and many textbooks as you want, but there's no difference in actually doing. Once you're actually having sex with someone, it's a totally different story.
I don't like the idea of like an institutionalized group of people at a school board or in the education ministry deciding what types of pleasure are constituted as, you know, okay to talk about in the classroom.
Lainey.
Yes.
You're a very cool adult that I know.
That is a great honor, so I will try to live up to that.
Well, I want to start off if your mom has ever given you really good advice that you could then give to me now.
I wrote a book about my mother, and she definitely has given me probably the best advice. My mother, like, you know, she was like, you're not the prettiest, you're not gonna be the smartest, but what you can be the best at is working hard.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, because you don't need any genetic gifts.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah.
So she's like, you can win the race at working hard. Make sure that no one beats you at working hard.
Yeah.
Which is, I felt like it was a really accessible thing to tell someone because it's achievable for everybody.
Do you think that would also be like your best advice to someone else, or do you have like separate advice that you would give to like your own teenage self or to another teenager?
So I wish I could go back to myself as a teenager and be like, get your shit together and stop skipping class. Yeah, the advice I would give is very simple. Go to school.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Stop hanging
It's
out.
good advice though.
Yeah, I just got my car.
Right.
I was booting around in my car all the time. Like, I would say, like, don't be a loser, you loser.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, so I know you have like a gossip column, and as someone who's like, I guess like a millennial or like has really grown up surrounded by like celebrity culture, I like wonder how you're like being also someone who's surrounded by that, how you sort of navigate celebrity culture in like a healthy way.
Yeah, my perspective on that is that, first of all, I do not accept when people call celebrity culture or gossip unhealthy.
Right, okay.
We don't call sports reporting unhealthy.
Yeah.
I think that, like everything, food, books, transportation, geography, everything can be good and bad.
Yeah, that's
for
good.
sure. There's good gossip, and there's bad gossip. Just like there are good books and there are bad books, and there are good people and there are bad people, and there's good sports and there's bad sports. With celebrity culture and gossip, I think when it's good, it can be critical to understanding who we are as a culture and as a society. I do think that when celebrity gossip is discussed in a productive way, it can be illuminating parts of our culture that we definitely need to talk about. So when we gossip and it's disparaged or demeaned as woman talk and bullshit and just, it's actually bullshit to call it that because the information we're exchanging could potentially save lives.
Yeah, no, that's so true. It's such an easy way to be dismissive of, especially, I think it's true, like femme identities, just to say that like, oh, it's gossip and it's like not relevant. Like one of my things about going into adulthood is I always sort of fear like losing time for like really simple things that make me happy.
I feel like if I hadn't been such a time waster in my 20s and I wasted so much time, I feel like in my 30s and now I would have been looking back saying I should have around some more. But now I feel like I don't have to because I around so much.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe this is not good adult advice and your parents would not.
No, I love it.
But around, like,
okay, yeah.
don't feel guilty about sitting around listening to your vinyl records, eating sugary cereal. Do it as much as you can.
Would you tell someone how much money you make? According to a recent survey, young adults talk about their salary way more than older people. 63% of people aged 18 to 36 reported sharing their salary with an immediate family member, 48% reported sharing it with friends, and 30% reported sharing it with colleagues. They're reportedly so open because they like to get financial advice from those around them. And according to the Wall Street Journal, companies know that millennials discuss compensation and are paying more attention to equitable pay as a result. Still, some argue that talking about your paycheck is awkward, and it puts people in uncomfortable situations. What do you think? Is disclosing your salary productive? Or is it best to keep financial matters private?
The video touches on two things, salary transparency, and then the other thing. Salary transparency is important because of things like the wage gap, the glass ceiling. Very important issues that we need to fix. Mark my words, we need to do this. However, talking about your salary with a colleague, I just think is tacky. Like, I can't really, for lack of a better word, like it just, I don't know. First of all, the moment you know how much someone makes, you're gonna think about how good a job they do and they're like, why do they make that? Maybe they make more than you, maybe they don't do as good a job as you. It's jealousy, it's envy, it's wrong.
I feel like people who talk about how much money they make are so egotistical. Like, I think it's so egotistical. Like, if you can tell me you have a fancy car, you can tell me you make all this money, but 9 times out of 10, the people who do that are still broke. Like, those are the people still in debt. Like, those are the people who don't make any money, like, and they don't know how to manage their money. So it's like, it doesn't matter if you make more money than me. If I'm smarter with my money than you, then it doesn't matter.
I'm definitely pro salary transparency. I think it's super important for wage gaps, like including gender gaps and race gaps and all that kind of thing. I think it's super important. But I'm also like, get rid of wage labor entirely. Universal income for everyone, and then we don't even have to worry about it.
You know, I think it's interesting for me. I feel like in the workplace, if you're talking about like discussing between colleagues, I think it will keep your employer fair and honest. Because I had the unique opportunity this summer to work at a unique business and to sit at the table when they were deciding what to pay people they were hiring. And I think, you know, you sit there and in that interview process, you may make certain judgments and certain assumptions on what to pay someone that may not be accurate compared to what to pay someone else. So I think if there is that talk within the colleagues, that means your employer is accountable for what they pay people. And I think that is incredibly important to the coworkers, to the employees, to the whole administration.
I think that sharing your salary is a great way to fix problems like the gender wage gap. But in saying that, you should definitely not be sharing your salary with your colleagues. Your intermediate family is okay, but when you're sharing it with your colleagues, it becomes more of a rivalry and it's more egotistic and it just makes you seem narcissistic.
I keep it to myself because I think that's the most safest way to do it, because if you have everybody knowing how much you make, what you do with your money, then people can, you know, plot against you and try to see you fall and make themselves rise.
Jelena is reigniting an age-old debate. Is it possible to be just friends with an ex? Jelena equals Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez. They dated on and off from 2011 to 2015. After Bieber, Gomez dated superstar singer The Weeknd. But this week, after 10 months, that relationship ended. Coincidentally, it ended days after Gomez and Bieber were spotted hanging out together. That has some wondering whether it's possible to maintain a platonic friendship with someone you've dated. A recent study led by researchers from the University of Kansas found that people stay friends with an ex for one of 4 reasons: security, practicality, civility, or unresolved attraction. What do you think? Is it possible to maintain a platonic friendship with an ex?
Like, no, I think when you share an experience with someone, whether it be sexually, physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever, it's like you're giving so much to that person. How can you just look at that person and say, no, there's rules, man, like, or like whatever, it's not gonna be the same. I think when you're friends with an ex, you're more likely to break certain rules and you're more likely to, you know, be a little closer. And so now you have yourself in a position where you're like, well, what are we?
And you know who agrees with you is Alyssa. Tweeted, again using the hashtag #MySide, people can be friends when they break up depending on the relationship that they want to have. If they still want to be friends, great.
You know, I gotta pop in here because, like, as a person who has like a few exes, I tend to be the person who dates people a long time and then like in the span of like 2 days decide I don't like you anymore and just like bye. I have a really bad habit of doing that. But I think like in terms of like thinking back, first of all, I'm not friends with any of my exes. I'm civil with all of my exes. Like we're not trying to kill each other. But I think, like Michael said, when you open yourself up that much and you give that much of yourself to someone, I think it's hard to step back and then put a barrier in it and say like, okay, we're removing these aspects of our relationship. Like if you think about your friends, you don't police aspects of your relationship with your friends. Like there's certain known boundaries, but it's never like, oh, we have to do this and not do this and blah, blah, blah. I feel like with exes, it's important and it can happen is to remain civil. I think I just can't imagine you could be friends after that much.
You can be friends with an ex. I think you can. I mean, I will say personally that I'm not like super into like conventional monogamous relationships, which is so out of character. But I still think at least the people in my life that I've had like any type of like romantic whatever, they're like people I really like as people. And so after we stop having whatever type of romantic whatever, I still really like them. Like,
am I the only person who thinks that it's kind of a bit much to have like for us to pronounce a judgment on this whole thing? Like, isn't this kind of a case-by-case basis?
I guess.
Am I the only one who thinks that? Like, no. I just think that this whole debate is framed upon like us four sitting on, you know, lovely sofas can kind of make a judgment on
the whole idea of
it's up to you. Like sometimes if relationships break up, like there's bad stuff that happens.
I want to be very clear. If someone treats you wrong, you cut them out of your life. No business being around, okay? But I'm just saying, like from my experience, these are like people that I really like and enjoy, and just because something sort of shifts or something seems off, it doesn't mean I don't like and enjoy their company. But you're right, someone treats you bad, you cut them out, you're an angel.
My friend has a rule where for every month you were together, you give a week of space. And then after that period of time, maybe you can start to be friends again. Sometimes it's difficult because friend groups are intertwined and all these things, but if you don't give it space, then things just get awkward.
I don't think it's possible for exes to be in a platonic relationship with one another, at least not right away. You're gonna need some time to go through whatever it is that you need to get over, and you can't do that if the other person is constantly around you and you're pretending to suppress feelings that clearly you haven't had time to deal with.
We have a guest!
Yes!
Hi, everyone!
Hey!
Hey!
How you guys doing?
We're like, good!
Love to have you.
Hey guys, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were just talking about whether two exes can be just friends. I want to know how you feel about that.
I don't think they should be friends. I feel like if you end a relationship with someone, you ended it for a reason.
Yeah.
And anytime that there's been like love involved, you're always going to think about it, and it's just simply a distraction.
As an entrepreneur, when you were 12, you were a DJ, you're a visual designer, you have obviously a big portfolio. How did you get started?
Well, I started by designing signatures on fanset forums. I was 10 years old. When I turned around 12, I had my first transaction and I charged someone $5 to design a signature. And when you're 12, $5 is a lot of money. So after that, it led me to interning at Universal Music when I was 14. So working at Universal Music Canada really helped me. I learned so many things from the people who I work with over there. Shout out to Big Eyes and Joshua. They really helped me with my career, and I was able to network and move on from there and focus on my career.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So your like nickname is Hustle Girl, which I like love. I'm a big fan because I'm like hustling a girl. And I want to know like how I want to know like how you got that name and like how you feel about it and like what it means.
Although I'm much older now, I came up with the name when I was 14. I literally just sat down, opened up the dictionary, fell upon the word hustle, fell in love with the definition. And as a creative person, I was like, how can I sit back and make this look cooler? So I just added girl right afterwards, merged the two together, capitalized the end, and that was it. That was Hustle Girl. I just rock with it.
Yeah, no, I rate it. You're like repping that female power. I'm actually in love with that as like another female out here.
Yeah, you gotta let them know. Hustle Girl is in the building.
Like, we out here, we doing stuff. But I had a question for you. You know, I see that you've come to Canada in 1995 and you are an immigrant, and I just wanted to know like a little bit about your story and how that actually shaped you and shaped your career and what you put out there into the world.
Yeah, well, for myself, immigrating to Canada, I was able to see my parents' hard work and seeing them work really hard to get the whole family to Canada. I have 4 siblings, just for us to come together to Canada and to see the hard work, it really instilled that hard work and that work ethic in me. And from then on, I was told that like anything is possible if you put work into it. So seeing my parents, they were like the living proof of that, to come to Canada, give us a better life, and to flourish from there.
A bit of a broad question. What do you look for to tell if a song or an artist is gonna go somewhere, is good? How do you recognize talent?
For me, I look for how the song makes me feel. I really look for music that evokes emotion. And once you have that, once you have my attention, there's something special about you and I want to learn and know more about your music. I just look for the way it makes me feel.
So being like an artist creative myself and deciding to like finish school early to like pursue music and the arts, I wanted to know how you feel about, you know, going to school, going to college, university as a creative, as an artist. Like, how would you feel about that? I know you had some experience with that.
I mean, it depends. For example, I applied to go to OCAD. During my interview process, the professor that was interviewing me told me that my work was too good and to just go straight into the field. So I would just say that it depends on where you're at in life and how you feel. But for me, for example, I started interning when I was 14. I was still in high school. I worked throughout high school, and I was able to just go along and follow my career and not have to go to school for what it is that I love to do. If you don't know, if you're a little lost in life and you don't know what it is that you want to do, you want to learn something new, you can go to school, even if it's just for a year or 2. It's okay to drop out of school. I'm a university dropout, but I've probably done so much more outside of school that I would have done if I was in school. Yeah.
So how can we like listen to your music and hear you and support you?
Well, I have a radio show that airs every Saturday night on the Deas channel on iHeartRadio. You can listen at 11 p.m. on iHeartRadio.ca/Deas, D-A-I-S.
You can watch that right after our show.
Yeah!
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so we have a game to play. It's called Onside, Offside. And you're gonna play with Michael here. And it's like a music theme, because y'all are musicians and talented artists, cool people. Onside is like thumbs up, you like endorse, you promote, you're there. And then offside is thumbs down, and you're not there. You're not there for it.
Onside, offside, auto-tune vocals.
I'm with it.
I think, man, I feel like the natural, I mean, if you use auto-tune, that's fine, but I also appreciate the fact of people who work on their voice and people who take the time to invest in their craft.
I will tie on to that. It's okay if you know how to use it, because there's so many ways you can use auto-tune. Some people just don't know how to use it. If you have a really good engineer, he can make you sound good. You can look at Travis Scott. He sounds amazing with auto-tune.
Onside, offside, visiting the DJ booth to make a personal song request.
I'm not with it. I find it distracting. It depends on the setting. I know some DJs, they take tips. I haven't been tipped to take a song request yet, but it depends. It depends who you are and like if you're drunk or not. As long as it's not a drunk song request, let's say that, but that's usually not the case.
Onside, offside, people at concerts who record the whole thing on their phone.
Hey.
Not with it.
Yeah, man, like you gotta experience it. Like these entertainers, they put on a show and they spend so many months, even years, like giving you a show. You gotta experience that.
Yeah, agreed. And even if you look at Adele, she doesn't like it when you have phones out and you're recording. She stopped concerts before. You really have to be there to experience, look around. You don't. There's no point of looking at it through a screen.
Former DJ telling people to put their hands up in the air. How many times have we heard this?
3, 2, 1.
I'm with it. It amps up the crowd.
I'm with it too.
And it's like you're controlling the crowd that way because you're telling the crowd what to do.
I just also feel like being a DJ is like so cool that like if a DJ tells me to do something, I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, you want to and then like if the person beside you is also doing it, you're gonna look not cool doing it. So
just slide, and I'm like, I'm with it. okay, I actually have a final one. So today, Christian, actually this is your birthday today, and I have a birthday theme onside offside. So birthday surprises. 3, 2, 1. Onside. I think it's big time onside. Okay, I think we have a surprise coming. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, dear Chris.
You guys are making me blush.
So my upside of the week is Cardi B getting engaged. And I'm super amped about that because Cardi B is like a female rapper and she's doing like the whole rap thing. And like this is 2017, she came out with a single. She's really playing the rap game when it's such a male dominated industry. And I'm just so amped for her to just have one good thing after another, like hit her up. Like this engagement, congratulations girl. I hope you have a really good wedding and everything is like perfect and the rest of your life is really happy because you know, you're doing it, you're playing the game, you're coming out, you're standing up for us ladies. So I'm glad you're having a good year.
My upside this week surrounds former President Barack Obama. He was selected to serve jury duty and he's going to do it. Whether you agree with him or not, I think that we can all agree that serving as president for 8 years is a pretty big service to the United States, but clearly it just shows that he believes that even if you serve at the top level, you still have to serve at the most basic level, which is the judicial system jury. I think it shows what kind of a good person he is, and it's humbling. It shows that everyone has to do their part, so I like it.
So my upside this week is Selena Gomez's interview on the Today Show where she talked about her kidney transplant. And you can watch it on their website. It's super inspirational.
I hope that this inspires people to feel good, to know that there is really good people in the world.
In the interview, Selena Gomez talks a little bit about her experience with her health and the struggle she's had with her health, and I think it's a really exciting video because I think that often people are told they have to be really quiet when it comes to suffering and experiencing pain, especially marginalized people like femme people or people of color. And so when I saw the video, I was just really excited about sort of the community that can be developed around, you know, health and having problems with health. And I thought it was really exciting and really inspirational because it's a hard thing to open up about. And that was my upside this week. It was rad.
So my upside of this week is on a hashtag going around called Magandang Marangs, which in Tagalog, in Filipino language, it translates to pretty brown skin. Now it was a movement started by Asia Jackson, a half black, half Filipino woman, wanting to push forward and change, you know, the colonial mentality around beauty. And I think it's very important as a darker skinned person that we have these conversations and that we embrace our own skin.
So guys, there is so much going on online in terms of some of the debate topics tonight. One is really on the sex ed debate topic. So a question has been asked online of, would you draw the line anywhere in terms of what is appropriate to teach? And we have somebody coming in and saying that he thinks that the line should be drawn based on the audience, but one of the things that's really important to include is talking about consent. What do you guys think? What would be the line that you would draw in terms of things you wouldn't want to teach young people in the classroom?
Consent is so key. I love that.
Yeah.
That is like something from like day one that's there. What's the line that gets drawn? Like,
technique?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Specific technique?
Specific technique, but I guess if you're talking about pleasure and how to be pleasurable.
Yeah. But I think that Michael made a really good point. Like one of my fears around like institutional education, like teaching these things, is that you just normalize certain types of pleasures and you don't other types, and everybody feels pleasure differently and likes different things. So like, how do you really teach that in like a good way?
Where do you draw the line? What's inappropriate?
Inappropriate? Oh my God, I don't know if I can say this.
You can try.
Okay, I draw the line at
You know what? I'm
sorry.
so not about that. Like I
No,
think
yeah.
Wait, hearing about it in class. Wait, what? Wait, what's the
I don't know if we need to. No, we're moving on. Okay, that's where I draw the line there. Okay, let's talk about friends with exes. This is actually really interesting. That came in from Oliver, and Oliver said, depends on the motive to being friends with an ex. I think unresolved attraction is the primary motivator in a lot of cases, and that just makes things messy. I kind of tend to agree with that. What do you think, Layla?
You know what? I kind of agree. Like my whole thing is when I am putting my heart and my soul into another person, if they break up with me, then I wasn't the one who felt like there was something wrong. So if I try to be like friends with an ex, then it may be my own lingering like, oh, I still love you, or I'm still like want to have you and be that kind of person to you. So I think like, yeah, I definitely think one of the primary motives is that one person feels like it's
still kind of into it.
Yeah, it's still kind of into it. And I think, yeah, definitely that can ruin not only your own personal, because you're sitting there like relying on that, but it also can stop someone else from moving on, which everyone has the right to move on and have like a respectful
a mutual breakup? Completely, everyone's on the same page?
But I think even if it is, you know, when you decide to pursue someone into a relationship, you're already crossing a line. So it's not like you can't go back and forth and, let's say, retrace our steps and we didn't do this anymore. Like, no, things happen and you shared your experiences with someone. So how can you take that back and act like you're not that anymore?
But I just feel like so deeply connected to all my friends. Like, to me, it's like a very blurred line between like friendships and relationships.
But I don't understand that.
I have a name. I have a name for it.
Explain that.
It's called the Bridget Jones complex.
Are you making out with all your friends, Gracie? That's what it sounds like.
I'm not making out with all my friends. That's a joke. That's a joke. My parents watch this. Okay, so my point is, I just think that like, I think friendship relationships are like a spectrum, and like I feel so deeply connected to my friends. I share so much with my friends that to me, like something being a relationship isn't that much different than friendships. Like I think there's like, I don't know, never mind. Okay. Michael's face is like so not there for that. It's complicated.
I love that that's the thing that you're worried about your parents hearing about, by the way. Anyway, thanks guys. It was a great debate. Let's continue it online. Thanks. Great show.
Woo!
If you like nature like I do, you've probably gone to some zoos in your life and you've probably been to the pet store. What I've realized is that if you go to a pet store and you don't buy anything, it's a free zoo. And this is great for me because you don't have to drive, you don't have to wait the lines, there aren't like a bunch of little kids with ketchup on their fingers smearing it everywhere, it's just you and the animals. Scaled down, but you know what? It's fun. So, life advice. See you at the pet store.
So I think the thing that I didn't get to talk about during our sexual education debate was the fact that while schools may not be the best people at educating youth about sex, I think we have to look at the other places that they're learning. So parents bring their own biases and their own cultural beliefs to the sex education and may not do a great job because they're not educators. And looking to find information about sexual education online is also not good because the internet is a very wild and dangerous place. So I think if we really look at all the options and opportunities to learn about sex and the different aspects of sexual education, it may be best to have it in school, have it be a little bit more regulated, and have the things that we are telling our students and our children and our youth actually be factually right. So I think, yeah, I'm so down for this sexual education in the schools. Tonight we also talk about sexual education.